Remind me where we are in life. We have a month left before graduation. Can you believe that?
We just took chapter 14 quiz. So I'm assuming we're starting. Oh, wait. Did we already start? Yeah, we took chapter 14 quiz and we started chapter 15, I think.
How did chapter 14 quiz go?
I forgot how to do, or I'd forgotten the whole thing about like the passing tone figure thing with the, and so it took me a long time to figure that out again.
Did you figure it out?
I think so. I hope so.
I don't even know what today is. Today's the 26th. Were there any other questions on the quiz? I'm going to share it with you now if you didn't. Hopefully you all took it. Part A, were there any questions? Part B, any questions? So you were talking about part C, Catherine?
Yeah. For the part 3 and then the NCT, the suspension in the bass. I had trouble figuring it out, as well as the second NCT. But
Okay,
I think I figured them out. But
did everybody do the quiz? Let me ask that first. Did anybody not do the quiz? You can private message me too.
For a lot of this stuff, I don't really think of all the rules. I just kind of use common sense and hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm not overly worried about it. All right. So I have another request in the chat to go over the suspensions as well. So I'm happy to do that. Let's just go over part C, shall we? Okay. What key are we in?
D major.
All right. Can we all buy this is a 1 chord? This is a 1 chord. And this is a 5. Is this a 5? Is it a 5 or is it a 5/7?
5/7.
It's not even. Wait, no, it is. Sorry, I was thinking we were in a different key.
All right.
It looks like 3 is a 1 chord as well.
Number 3 is a 1 chord. Love it.
2 is a 5/6/5.
Good.
6 is a 2 chord, if I remember correctly. But in, I think it's.
We lost you. Say that again. What chapter is this? 14? All right. You said 6 is a what? Catherine, you're muted. We don't hear you.
I know.
Okay.
I was talking to myself at that part.
You know what they say about that?
I don't care. But what do they say?
I don't know. Okay. Let's go number 4. We've got an E, a C sharp, a G, and remember that this A is being held over, yeah? So that makes this a...
You talking about number 4?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 5, the inversion.
Yep. Remember, if the A's on the bottom, it's a 7. If the C sharp's on the bottom, it's a 6/5. If the E's on the bottom, it's a 4/3. And if the G's on the bottom, it's a 4/2. E's on the bottom, so we have a 5/4/3. Everybody all right with that? A friend in the chat said, talking to yourself. Oh, you can all see that. It's all right as long as you get the right answers. Okay, chord number 5.
Problem is, I didn't get that right answer. So
I think it's a 1/6.
1/6. I will buy that. Everybody see that? All right, number 6. We're back.
I got a 2/7.
Catherine has a 2/7. Does anyone else have a 2/7? Can anybody else corroborate that?
I don't know. I don't trust it.
I have a 4.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's what I did do.
So to be a 2, we need an E, a G, and a B. I see the G, I see the B, I don't see the E. To be a 4, we need a G, a B, and a D. I see the G,
No,
I
I
see the
did
B,
wrong.
I see the D. See what happened?
Yeah. I'm mad now.
Okay. Don't get mad, get E-Trade. All right. So there's our Roman numeral analysis. However, we've got 3 NCTs. I think we should sing NCT to the tune of PYT by Michael Jackson. That's beside the point. Just a thought. Okay, so we have 3 non-chord tones. I want to love you. Non-chord tone. And it just doesn't work. NCT. Okay. Does anybody know what kind of non-chord tone we have where? Any guesses? Any clues?
They're parentheses, so it's not really guesses.
Let me rephrase the question. You're right. They are parentheses. But because they're parentheses, based on the notes that they are, can you tell what they are? Do they tell us what they are?
For the very first one, I think I put suspension.
And why did you put that?
Because that one doesn't change while the rest of the chord changes. And then on the second half of the beat, it resolves to the chord.
And that was the point I was trying to make, Catherine. If the chord tone is the same, that's a good chance it's a suspension. That's all I was trying to say. So we got a sus here is what we're saying, yeah?
Yeah, definitely kind of sus.
I see what you did there. I will award you 2
Let's vote him off the
She
ship.
voted off the island?
The ship, but I mean,
Welcome to Theory Survivor. I'll be your host, Jeff Probst. Claire did not like that idea. She's like, oh no.
You have potential to have a great announcer voice.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye. The Amazing Theory Race. Welcome to our music.
I was
theory
going with
game show.
Among Us, but that works too.
All right. What are we suspending? And how do we know?
The E chord or the E note.
I think you're right. But why are you right? Tell us why you're right, Pete.
I've got 2-3 because
Yeah.
the D is the D and the E are it's a minor a second relationship.
Gotcha. So you're saying the suspension occurs between here to here. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Excellent.
So
Does everybody see that? Go
yeah,
ahead. Keep going, Pete. You're doing great.
And then the D drops to the C, making it a 3 relationship.
Well, the D doesn't move. Oh, you're saying this is the suspension.
The
I'm
D.
sorry. I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you were saying. Yes.
Yeah, the E and the D on the low
So we had a
on
second.
the staff.
Yeah, we had a second that became a third. Sometimes it's easier to hear them than to see them. Good. Friends in the chat, did that suspension review help?
I wrote 9-6. Do I get points?
Ooh. I like that. 9-6. Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know what would be great? You know what would be really great? Is if you all just graded these and sent me your score.
I can do that. 100%.
I think I did 5-6
Ooh.
in
Where
relation
did you...
to the A on the top.
Ah, isn't this interesting?
But I don't think I'm correct because now I'm remembering. Well, of course, I remember after the fact. That you use the most dissonant interval. Is that right? To
Well,
configure.
who's to say
I'm trying to remember.
what's the most dissonant?
I think the 2-3 because you got a major second there.
Was there a commission that decided which ones were the most dissonant?
I don't know.
I missed that part.
It seems like I remember something from the textbook that said that, but I could be wrong.
It did say that. And I just got a wrong answer. It's okay.
All right. So we had a 2-3 suspension. That's what the book called it. Is this a Cobb? Is this a Cobb suspension?
It's not only a Cobb suspension. The suspension actually occurs in the bass.
Ah. It's a bass suspension with a change of bass. That's what Cobb stands for. I know you were wondering that. Cobb, change of bass. Do you remember our book talked about that? And we reviewed it once. Do you remember this? Do we need another review from our book? I'm happy to do that. I can tell from your silence you want to know what the book says. It's on page 196. I'd take you there on my screen, but then we'd lose everything that we're doing. So, it says...
I didn't find page 196.
I know you didn't find it, Siri. Yeah. When a suspension occurs in one of the upper voices, the bass will sometimes move to another chord tone at the same time as the suspension resolves. This device is referred to as a suspension with change of bass. In such a case, a 7/6 suspension, for example, might become a 7/3 suspension because of movement of the bass. It is also possible to move the upper part of the dissonance as the bass resolves in a 2/3 suspension, creating a 2/6 suspension. But the answer key called this one a 2/3 suspension. So, notice that the second number is larger than the first only in the 2/3 suspension. a type sometimes referred to as a bass suspension. So that's what we have here. In textures involving more than two parts, the vertical intervals are calculated between the bass and the suspended part. If the bass itself is suspended, the interval is calculated between the bass and the part with which it is most dissonant, generally a second or a ninth above in a 2-3 suspension. With the exception of the 9/8 suspension, the note of resolution should not be present anywhere in the texture when a suspension occurs. Did that help?
Well, how do you figure out which one's the most distant? Because
It said it's usually a second or a ninth above in a 2-3 suspension.
but you have both.
Right. Which I think they're saying it's the same thing. Do you remember we're reducing instead of calling it a 9? What do we got there? 9/10 suspension.
I put
You
9-2 because I didn't know what to do.
Well, you got it right. You knew what you were doing. So it's a. Skylar, explain your sixth. That's where I'm confused.
Yeah, honestly, saying 9/10, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
I thought it's like a compound sixth, so it should be 9/10.
Okay. So are we all on the same page? I think we are. We're just a little fuzzy. It's the end of the semester fuzz. We're like, can we make it 30 more days, please? 30 days from today. Can you believe that?
Well, I mean, I don't have to deal with graduation, so it's 3
Even
weeks.
Yeah.
And then finals,
Yeah.
which is scary.
Like 27 days. Questions on the suspensions? Seeing none, hearing none. Are we going on?
Okay, for the second suspension, is it 2-1 because of the weird rule that I saw in the book?
I don't think it's a suspension.
What do you mean it's not a suspension?
I think it's a non-chord tone, but not a suspension.
I've got a 9/8 suspension.
Do you? Maybe it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, you're right. Say it again, Catherine.
I put 2-1 because it had a specific thing in the I remember. It said if it was larger than an octave, then you put the 9/8, but if it's within the octave, you put the 2-1 or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it went, but
Yeah, the book put the 9/8. That's the great thing about our final, Catherine, is I didn't come up with these crazy numbers to try to fool you. My poor answer choices are so absurd, you're going to end up getting it right on the multiple guess final.
that does make me feel better.
All right, let's find that verbiage, shall we? The names of most, this is page 196 for those of you following along at home. The names of most suspensions remain constant, even if compound intervals are involved. For instance, even if the 4/3 is actually an 11/10, as an example 12-14, it is still referred to as a 4/3. The exception to this is the 9/8. It is always called a 9/8 suspension unless it does not involve a compound interval, in which case it is labeled a 2/1 suspension. The reason for this inconsistency is that the 2/1 suspension is found much less frequently than the 9/8, so it is appropriate that they have different labels. So this is indeed a 9/8. suspension. Now, Catherine, for it to be a 2-1, we would have had to have a G with that A. With me?
No, because there's a G in the bass.
There is a G in the bass, which gives us the interval of a ninth. Which goes to an 8. But if we had a G right here, then we'd have a 2-1 suspension. All right, are we all right with that? Questions, comments, concerns, private messages in the chat. Seeing none, hearing none. Moving on. All right, our last NCT. What is it?
Anticipation.
Yeah, got there early, didn't it?
I thought you were saying we were moving on to like the next chapter and that had a new NCT that we're dealing with.
Oh no, that would not be good. So that's our Aunt Joni. That's our aunt. Aunt Joni's here. It's Geico commercial. Forget it. It has nothing to do with anything. Just forget I ever said anything. Go watch the Ant commercial by Geico, and then you'll get it. With that Ant commercial by Geico, it's better online because it's extended by 3 seconds, and there's a funnier joke at the end that they don't show on TV, just so you know. Okay, can I clear my screen? Are we done? Hot Pockets. Are we done with this quiz?
Emotionally, yes. Let's go.
Luke, don't you go to school anymore? No. You're suspended, aren't you? Oh, that was horrible. It's a possibility. All right, I do not want to be on annotate anymore. Let's go back over here. No, here. Are you seeing the screen?
We are.
Excellent. Last time we left off with this. Wow, it seems really zoomed. Does it seem really zoomed?
Yeah.
I kind of liked it when it was really zoomed,
Did you?
Yeah, I second that. I like the zoom.
especially for people.
I didn't like it too zoomed, but like this is good for me personally.
My problem is that I can't.
Not everyone has a huge monitor. Some people are on phones, so it's really hard to do.
Okay, well, hold on. Can I zoom? I can zoom. I'm not opposed to zooming. I just gotta set my windows up right. So is that good?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right.
That's pretty good.
I can go bigger if you want bigger. I just can't have it taking up my whole real estate on my desktop, so I think we're good now. All right. As you recall, we did start chapter 15 a long time ago, and we got through quite a bit of it. We're talking about seventh chords on every possible scale degree, yeah? And
Vaguely.
You vaguely remember this? Would you like a chapter 15 recap? I'm happy to give you one.
I would love one.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
chapter 14 quiz made me forget about chapter 15.
There's too much. All right. So we started talking about diatonic seventh chords other than the dominant seventh. And we had this tattoo that you were going to get next. I think you were going to put it on your ankle. I'm not sure. That had the frequency of the seventh chords from most frequent to least frequent. Is this recalling? Is this recalling a bell? That wasn't what I was supposed to say. Is this ringing a bell? All right. And then they said, well, we can't really give you one for minor. We just can't do it. But it's pretty much the same. Remember that? Oh, no. Don't do that. And then they gave us the following insightful principles, as they're calling them, of handling seventh chords. The seventh of the chord almost always resolves down by step. The seventh of the chord may be approached in various ways. That was helpful. Especially common is the suspension figure, the passing tone. The neighbor and the appoggiatura are less common.
Big question again.
Yeah.
Do they mean the seventh of, like, the fourth note in the chord, or do they mean the seventh
of the chord?
Okay.
Seventh of the chord.
Okay.
If they want something that's not that, they'll say scale degree. They'll put a little party hat on their seven. Like that. With me? All right. Incomplete chords must contain at least the root and the seventh. Remember that? And double tones should not be the chord seventh or the leading tone. That's a 2-for-1 right there. The seventh or the seventh. You with me? Do you remember these principles, as they called them?
I didn't remember the fourth one.
What other chords would have a leading tone besides the dominant chord?
Well, the leading tone's going to show up in 3 of the chords, yeah? Forget that. Actually, 4 chords, isn't it? Let's get our good friend Classroom Maestro out. Let's see if I know what the heck I'm talking about. Substitute music theory teacher. I don't know. Here are my diatonic seventh chords in the key of C major.
You're not showing your screen with that one.
Oh, so sad. There we go. There are our diatonic seventh chords in C major. Is this true? And I have a leading tone in my 1 chord, my 3 chord, my 5 chord. What happened to my 7? What the heck happened? That's horrible. We'll do that again. So as I was saying, before I was so rudely interrupted by Classroom Maestro, our leading tone shows up in 4 of our chords. Once as the root, once as the 3rd, once as the 5th, and once as the 7th. I'm going to change that R because I don't like it. Am I? Yeah. No, I'm just going to leave it.
Isn't the party hat supposed to indicate the seventh of the scale, not the chord?
I had it right.
Okay.
No party hats. It is party hat number 7 for all of them. And it shows up as the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh. Party hat number 7. So it shows up in 4 chords. Pete, you with me there? All right. So where were we going with this?
You couldn't double the leading tone and the 7th of the chord.
There we go.
We're on the 2-7 now.
So the leading tone or the 7th, that principle number 4 on their list of principles, we can't double the 7th of the leading tone. Well, we only have to worry about that on chord 1, 3, 5, and 7 as far as doubling the leading tone, because that's the only chord. Those are the only chords that contain the leading tone, which is still about half of the chords, but there you go. Cool. Clearing the screen.
Thank you.
Yep. Now we're going to have a new screen share back to... Those were the principles. Now we're on to the 2-7 chord. This is the most commonly found one. In major, it's a minor. In minor, it's a half diminished. Typically goes to the 5. Acts as a predominant. We heard a little Mozart, Jupiter. And I was so impressed that I knew that 41 was the Jupiter. Proved that I took music history. And that was the 2 chord. Were there questions on the 2 chord? Next was the 7-7 chord. It's got a Barry Bonds asterisk right there. Go Dodgers. The leading tone 7th in major is a half diminished 7th chord. What does the asterisk mean? It's a performance enhancement 7th chord. It doesn't say. Are we supposed to click on the asterisk? I think we're supposed to click on it. Huh. Just a little side note to tell you. We'll talk about the fully diminished 7th chord later in major in chapter 21. Functions like a dominant. You remember that? Normally resolves to the tonic, but it could go to the dominant. And in that case, it kind of functions like the 164. Yeah, the 164 chord. The 164 chord, right? So all of these went to 1 with the exception of this one right here. We're in the key B flat. Sorry. So it can go to the dominant or it can go straight to the tonic. There's a couple cases that we talked about specifically. Handling carefully to avoid the parallel fifths. And sometimes that's going to require doubling. Doubling the third. Because we want to avoid those poor parallel fifths. We talked about 3 blind mice. We listened to Brahms.
Example 15-8.
So sometimes you'll get those nice 1, 2, 3 or 6, 7, 1 runs to resolve. Oh, hello. And then we talked about the 7 chord in minor. And it's fully diminished. We talked about the difference between the leading tone and the subtonic. Do you remember this? Leading tone is raised, scale degree 7. Subtonic is not. It's the natural scale degree 7, right? And as a result, if you have the leading tone, you get a fully diminished seventh chord. And if you don't, you get a major seventh chord. A minor. Fully diminished. Versus you want it to go here, but it doesn't.
What's the what's it called when it's a minor song and it ends on major?
Picardy third.
Piccadilly third.
All's right with the world. The sun came out. All right, the 7 has a dominant function. May move to the 5. We talked about the 2 tritones. You remember the 2 tritones? The diminished 5th resolves outward. The augmented 4th resolves inward. I mixed that up. Inward when spelled as a diminished 5th. The tritone resolves inward when spelled as a diminished 5th. Resolves outward when spelled as an augmented 4th. That might result in a double third. Composers don't always care to follow these tendencies. We listen to Bach.
Example 1511.
We had a big debate whether it was a 2 half diminished 6/5 or a 7 diminished 4/3 the whole time. It was an invigorating debate. We decided none of us want to become theorists and get paid to do that all day long. And then we did this checkpoint, which we struggled with. And number 1 said, the most frequent used diatonic 7th chord is the 5/7. Which one ranks second in frequency?
2.
2 is correct. Good job. And I told you, if I was you, hint, hint, cough, cough, wink, wink, snicker, snicker, I would memorize that little charty chart that said what the most common forms of 7th chords were. And that was the first thing in this chapter. What tones of the 7th chord should not be omitted? We determined that was the root in the seventh, right? The seventh of a diatonic seventh chord resolves
Down.
down by
Step.
Which type of seventh chords are found on the scale degree 2 and scale degree 7 in major and minor? It's minor in major for 2. It's diminished on 7 in major. And right, this is what we were saying. It's a minor and a diminished in major. And oh, why do you hate us? I'm just going to put that. It's a dominant. Oh, come on. Half diminished. And major. In minor. With me? All right. Which chord discussed in this chapter contains 2 tritones? I'm not sharing my screen.
The fully diminished.
Did we just talk about this? With me? The natural tendency of the augmented fourth is to resolve
Outward. And the diminished fifth is inward.
Is that right? Try to recall the implications of the preceding question in connection with the diminished 7 chord. Are there implications? Oh yes, the implication is you get double thirds. Is that the implication?
Yeah, which is not common.
It's not a norm. All right.
Can you go back and talk about the part where they're talking about with the diminished seventh and the major seventh and about the leading tone or not,
Yeah.
please? Is it only with the seventh where that happens with?
Yeah.
Okay. And does it, and that happens in minor and not major?
Yeah, so we can be in natural minor, or we can be in harmonic minor, or we can be in melodic minor. And based on which minor we are in, we either have a subtonic or a leading tone. The subtonic is the natural G in A minor. It's the non-raised scale degree 7. The leading tone is the raised scale degree 7.
Where does the subtonic resolve to? Where does it go?
Ooh, good question. Where does it go?
He asked you first.
I think he still goes to 1, Pete.
That'd be a good assumption given our tattoo on our arm.
Right? Scale degree 7 can still go to 1, but can't scale degree 7 also go to 5? I'm going with 1. It's my final answer. But when I'm wrong, remember I'm just a substitute.
We'll hold it against you, don't worry.
Anybody have any comments on that? Does the 7 go somewhere else?
I did like the sound of the 5, but how funky it was.
It was strange, yeah. All right, what else did you want to talk
Thanks.
about with this? Is that it?
Yeah, that was the thing that was kind of biting at me.
All right. So, now we're to the 4 chord. Is this where we left off?
Yeah.
I think so. The diatonic subdominant 7th chord is found in the forms shown in example 15-12. In major, we're in D major. In major, the 4 chord is a major 7th chord. In minor, we get a minor 7th chord, and occasionally, infrequently, we get a dominant 7th on the 4 chord. Like the subdominant triad, the subdominant 7th moves to 5 or to 7 diminished in first inversion, often passing through some form of the 2 chord on the way. The resolution to 2/7, possibly inverted, is especially easy to handle because only the 7th needs to move. This is illustrated in 15-13. Remember that the 4 chord and the 2 chord have 2 out of 3 tones in common for the triad. We are in A major, and we have this so they put a little slur mark in the top to show you only the top note actually moves. Everything else stays the same. Some nice melancholy Monday music. And you could just listen to that on repeat on Pandora forever, couldn't you? Oh, it's kind of gloomy.
Some nice lo-fi.
Sounds like a suspension.
Yeah. Welcome to Smooth Jazz with Dr. B. All right. So, Claire's
I
like,
have to make a more jazzy jingle.
No, it's lo-fi. You have to have it like chilled.
all right. What are we illustrating again? The 4 and the 2 chord. Only one note had to change. In B, The 4 is going to go to the 5, and we're going to have parallel fifths. Is that horrible? This can be corrected through the use of a cadential 6/4 chord, which was what they try to do in C. I just assume I have the parallel fifths myself.
Yeah, they didn't put whether it was good or bad, and I don't remember where, but one of them liked parallel fifths in the top, it was okay, but in the bass it was bad. Where was that?
Right here. So I'm assuming because they're using the verbiage corrected that it's wrong or against norms, shall we say. This can be corrected through the use of the cadential 6/4 chord. Or by doubling the fifth of the chord, as they did in D, which I think sounds worse because you have an octave, which I don't like. I'd rather have the fifth, but that's just my ear. Otherwise, the voice leading to and from the root position subdominant seventh is smooth and offers no new problems. The subdominant seventh in minor with a raised scale degree. Before we go there, any questions on that?
Did you play D?
I did play D. Here it is. It gives us that nasty octave I don't like. But they like that better than B.
I don't understand the reasoning, because they didn't like either of them in chapter 5. Or whatever it was.
I think you just stick with A. Remember, we're learning the rules so we can throw them out the window. Just wait till we get to 20th century theory.
Just be a John Cage.
Oh. We'll now take the next 4 minutes and 33 seconds and observe what we hear. That'd be really interesting to do in Zoom, actually. Because it's going to be different in Zoom for each person. Ah. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? So John Cage wrote this piece called 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And it's basically an empty score. And the pianist goes and he takes his bow and he sits down and he looks at his watch. And he sits there for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And when 4 minutes and 33 seconds is up, he stands up and takes a bow, and that's the piece.
Well, I've seen orchestral scores of it, and there's like 3 sections, and then composer wipes his the conductor wipes his brow. It's great.
Original is for piano. That sounds almost like PDQ Bach. If you don't know PDQ Bach, go look up PDQ Bach. He's funny. But John Cage was dead serious. Like, people will say, that's not music, that's not art. But his whole point is everything you hear is music. It made you hear it, made you recognize it. You thought about it, right? It's also never the same. The piece is never the same. And that's what John Cage did a lot of. I remember I was teaching at this really isolated school in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, where radio reception wasn't great. And John Cage wrote this piece called Radio Music. And there's all these different parts, and you can do as many parts as you want of it. And you all get these AM radios. And there's a graph, like a line, that's supposed to show you how long that you're supposed to stay on the radio frequency. And it gives you the numbers, and everyone's parts are different. And this was back in the day when Tiger Woods was having a scandal. Do you remember the Tiger Woods scandal? I still remember it to this day. That was like the only station we could pick up in this rural part of Idaho was a sports radio talking about the Tiger Woods scandal. So we all performed this in like the courtyard of the music building. And we all had our radio, and we all tuned our radios to the frequencies for as long as we interpreted that graph to be. And that's the only thing we picked up. And you'll never get the same piece twice. You can do it today, and they'll be talking about Tom Brady or somebody else on sports radio, right? And then being in a different part of the country, you're going to get different radio stations. And, you know, you might get Glenn Beck instead or some other disc jockey or music or nothing or mariachi music. You can get anything, whatever's on AM radio.
I saw a really cool interview that he did. He was talking about, like, he was in New York and they were like at a cafe and you could hear the traffic outside, and he was like, yeah, even the traffic out there is music, because there's plenty of composers that write it into their music, and you're like, oh, that's the siren, you can hear the siren. So like, what's the difference between what I've done and what they've done, and what even just that noise is, and things like that. That's really cool.
I mean, usually we just take 10 seconds. Take 10 seconds and listen to what you hear in your house. Go. So in those 10 seconds, I heard my kids' Zoom meeting. I heard one of my kids shut a drawer on a dresser. I thought I heard the dryer or a creak in the house. What'd you guys hear?
Heard my computer fan.
Yep.
And the tinnitus.
I've got my door open, so I'm hearing traffic.
Yeah. I have a kid in my piano class. Every time he unmutes, we hear birds. Sometimes we hear a chicken or a rooster, but usually it's just birds tweeting. What else did you hear? I mean, even in the OAB, like, you can hear every time somebody opens the door, you can hear people outside of the OAB because that place just, it's like a bathtub, reverberates. I mean, when kids walk down up and down the stairs, you can hear it. People are screaming, being wild. You can hear people cough, rustling of the paper of the program. My kid just flushed a toilet. There's always all that stuff you can hear. And John Cage really made you aware of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't necessarily be. It's also a great piece if you need like 5 more minutes on your senior recital. You're like, I don't want to learn anything. 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Now there's another piece.
Piano or voice?
Yeah, piano. There's another piece for piano, which they did, in which you burn a piano. And I really want to do that one. And the music is like the strings popping off the pegs, the pins, and rattling against the cage. But
So basically like Jimi Hendrix, but on a piano.
yeah. And you just sacrifice the piano. So you don't want to do it on an expensive one.
Or you can make a total statement about it and do it on a really expensive one.
Yeah, do a GoFundMe, get it money raised for
Or just
Steinway.
go through Steinway and just be like, hey, I'm doing this, blah, 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 and write it really, really well. Really well.
All right. So we were talking
Maybe
about
just
going,
have him do it himself, and then you just come in and record it.
just got to raise the money so he's not out. The subdominant seventh in minor with a raised scale degree 6 is a major minor seventh chord, but it does not have a dominant function. This is in 1512. Right here. This infrequent one. So it doesn't have a dominant function. Instead, it results from ascending motion toward the leading tone. Scale degree, raise scale degree 6 going to raise scale degree 7 going to 1. As in the Bach example shown next. This phrase is especially interesting in that it contains subdominant chords using both raised scale degree 6 and lowered scale degree 6, as well as a dominant chord in first inversion using raised scale degree 7, and a minor dominant chord in first inversion using lowered scale degree 7. Notice also the Phrygian cadence.
Example 15-14.
So you clearly heard that very strong half cadence at the end. And you would not say that this functioned as a half cadence in the middle, would you? Listen one more time. I hear it just as passing through myself.
Example 15-14.
Thoughts?
If they'd made it longer, maybe we'd have thought it to be a half, but no, it just sounds like it's going right through, yeah.
So we get a little chromaticism in there. Yay, accidentals. Do you remember what the definition of Phrygian half cadence was? It's the minor 4/6 to 5 half cadence in minor. So, great example for the book to use so they can reiterate that Phrygian half cadence at the end one more time.
Example 15-14.
And the book made the point that this example is crazy because we have a major 4 and a minor 4 and a major 5 and a minor 5 all in the same example within 2 measures. Talk about diversity in Bach.
And it sounds cool.
Yep. So, there's your 4 chord. And remember, that 4 chord is number 4 in our batting lineup. Not very frequent. It's kind of in the middle. Yeah? All right. Next, we have the 6/7 chord. The submediate 7th is found in 3 forms, 1 in major, 2 in minor. Again, just like the 4 chord, we have a frequent and an infrequent in minor. There's our major. We're in the key of B flat major. 1 We have a minor 6 7th chord. Like their parent triads, the minor 6 7th chord and the major 6 major 7th chord typically move toward 5, usually passing through subdominant or supertonic chords or both on the way. The resolutions to 4 and 2 are not difficult, and some of the possibilities are illustrated in example 15-16. Here we go. We are in C major to start with. The book's getting cute again, saving ink. And so they're doing it both in major with no sharps and flats and in minor with 3 flats all on the same staff. You with me? That's why we got parentheses. So the first time we're going to look at this like this. We're just going to look at it. The top numbers in C major.
Didn't they just say 6 goes to 5?
They did. Let me tell you exactly what they said.
Then why didn't they even show 1?
They said 6 typically moves towards 5, usually passing through subdominant or supertonic chords or both on the way. So that's what we're doing. It's two supertonic, yeah? So there we went. 6, 2, 5, 1. All right, so A is 6 to 2, 7, 6, 7, 2, 7. B is 6, 7, 2, 4, 3. C is 6, 7, 4, 6. And D is 6, 7, 2, 6 with the questionable parallel octave. So that was the major version. Now we're going to do the minor version. And we are going to be in C minor. We are going to implement those 3 flats, B flat, E flat, A flat. Here we go. So in minor, we have a major, major. One sec. Dealing with crises for tonight. So major 6, major 7th chord. So not only a major 6 triad, but a major 6 7th chord. Going into 2 half diminished. Eventually getting there to 1. B, same thing. different inversion. C, we're going to go to a 4/6, a minor 4/6. D, we're going to go to a diminished 2-chord in first inversion. Same parallel octave problem in minor. So that's where we are. Hopefully that was a good refresher for you. Back in school mode, out of the weekend mode, and we're going to pick up here on Wednesday. Just looking ahead, we've got the 2-chord, we've got the 6-chord left, the 1-chord left, the 3-chord left, we'll talk about sequences, and then we're on to our self-test and our summary. Isn't that crazy? That's all I've got.
Will the final just be on?
It'll be a whole cumulative final
Okay.
for all the chapters we've done. We'll review for it. You're going to be fine. It's multiple multiple choice. That was a joke. Claire, smile. You're going to be just fine. All right. I'll see you tomorrow at ear training.
Thanks, Dr. B.
You bet.
Hey, Dr. B.
Thanks,
Bye.
thanks, Doc.
All right.